the types of budget. Now, as a direct material budget is prepared, after the production requirement has been computed, I know exactly now how much I need to produce. To produce this quantities of cases, how much cost do I have to bear in order to produce that? One of the costs is the direct material. It details the raw material that must be purchased to fulfill the production budget and to provide for adequate inventory. So the required purchases of raw material are computed according to the following. We have the required production in units of finished goods, how much I need to produce. We have to look at the raw material required to produce each unit. And of course, we have to look at how much I need raw material to meet the production schedule. So I have how much to produce, how much I need raw material to produce each unit, and accordingly I will have how much raw material I need to produce in total. We have to add here the desired ending raw material inventory. Keep in mind, since we are working about production or even merchandising, we always have to keep in mind that this item, the desired ending inventory, whether it is raw material or finished goods, is very important in order not to face shortages at one point in time should sales increase. So here we have the total raw material needed. We have the beginning raw material inventory that we're left with from the previous quarter. So accordingly, this is where we have the raw material to be purchased. How much raw material I need to purchase. Once I decide how much raw material I need to purchase, I know how much each unit of raw material will cost me, and accordingly, the cost of raw material to be purchased. This is an amount of cash that has to be spent. How much I need to spend just to provide enough raw material for my sales. So let's work on a direct material budget. In this one, let's look at it. We have to start, first of all, with the required production in cases. The only raw material included in that budget for trees is a high fructose sugar, which is the major ingredient in popsicles other than water. The remaining raw materials are relatively insignificant, and they are included in variable manufacturing overhead that we will see later on. As with finished goods, management would like to maintain some inventory of raw material to act as a caution. In this case, management of trees would like to maintain an ending inventory of sugar equal to 10%. 10% of the following quarter's production needs. So, if you look here at the first line, we have the required budget. In the first line, in the direct material budget, we have the required production as we've seen it before for each quarter, summing up 101,000 cases. Looking at the first quarter, because the production calls for production of 14,000 cases of popsicles, and each case requires 15 pounds of sugar. This is the raw material needed of fructose sugar per pounds per case. So the total production needed of raw material is nothing but 14,000 cases times 15 pounds per case. That's 210,000 pounds of sugar needed in the first quarter. In addition, management wants to have an ending inventory equal to 10% of the second quarter's production needed. So if we look at the second quarter, that's 32,000 cases that needs 15 pounds per case. That's 480,000 pounds of sugar. Out of this 14 and 80,000, we have to keep 48,000 from the first quarter. That's 10% of the needs of the second quarter. And again, this 48,000 that we ended the first quarter with, as we said in the production, it should be the 40,000 that we start the next quarter with in terms of raw material inventory. So the total raw material needed is 210 plus 48, that's 258,000. And we have already started the year with 21,000 pounds. So the raw material to be purchased is 237,000 pounds. Looking in the market, we now realize that this pound of sugar, each pound of sugar will cost us 0.8 dirham. So having the total quantity of pounds of sugar needed times 0.8 per pound, so we need to produce 100, we need to buy or to pay for them 189,000 dirham. That 289,600 dirham is the multiplication of the pound times the cost per pound. Now, as with the production budget, here the amount listed being the total during the year, here also as well, this is the raw material needed for the production. We have to look at the ending period raw material. That ending period raw material is nothing but the ending of the fourth quarter that is used to start the next year with. So again, once we decide how much to pay for these raw materials, we have to see how we will pay for this raw material. Ordinarily, companies, they do not immediately pay their suppliers. At freeze, they usually go for a 50-50 share, whereby they pay 50% of their purchases during that same quarter, and the other 50% they pay it in the second quarter. So accordingly, once we go into that cash disbursement for the raw material, we know that the company needs to buy 189,000 dirham, which is a split 50% to be paid in that specific first quarter, and the remaining 50% will be paid in the second quarter. Looking at the figures of the cash disbursement for raw materials, we have here the number 194,320 dirham. That number is nothing but the summation of what we are to pay for the current quarter purchases plus what accounts payable we had from previous quarter. So I mean the 50% of the previous quarter purchases in terms of raw material. So summing up the total 4 quarters to be paid for the cost of the raw material, the company will have to pay during the year 1,201,600 dirham for raw material to meet all the production requirements of the year to produce 101,000 cases of